And so our viewers who've forgotten you or can't recall why they hate you so much might have their memories jogged by the following montage of what it looks like when you're the most unpopular man in the world. Here it is.
The so-called most hated man in America is an even bigger jerk than we first thought. That's what Martin Shkreli's critics are saying about these new secret memos that show he bragged about jacking pill prices for the sick so he could get filthy rich.
Whether he's committing securities fraud or trolling people on the internet, Shkreli doesn't think he has to answer to anybody.
The 32-year-old former hedge fund manager became an internet pariah, headlined as the most hated man in America.
The most hated man in America.
Most hated man in America.
The most hated man in America.
The face of evil pharma, Martin Shkreli.
So overpaid news anchors thought you made too much money. You feel like, and I've never defended pharma in my life, and I'm not going to now, but I feel like maybe there were facts omitted from that summation of your case.
Definitely a few facts.
So summarize. So for people who remember hating you because you raised the price of this anti-parasitic drug by 5,000% or something, what do you think the public missed about your story?
I think virtually everything, and when the media can find a way to tell a story that sounds great and sells clicks. For example, Bloomberg's #1 story of 2015, I happen to date the reporter that covered me, which was its own fiasco.
Wait, you dated the reporter who covered you?
She ended up, this woman named Christy Smythe. She's a wonderful lady. She was the court reporter for Bloomberg, senior reporter in the business for a long time. And Bloomberg consistently sort of tried to lean on her to not report kind of evenly. And it was the #1 clicked news article for Bloomberg that whole year. And
you being bad.
Yes. And
so that was your time in the barrel. Everyone in public life, experiences that. You really did at maximum velocity. What was that like?
I think it was like surreal. I was defiant because I couldn't imagine this was happening. I thought it was all a joke. Could when is everybody going to come out and say, "Oh, just kidding"? And of course that wasn't the case. So every time I doubled down, the opposition, if you will, sort of doubled down as well.
Yeah.
And it got to this brinksmanship almost of like me telling politicians like Hillary and so forth, like, you can't do anything about this. It's a sovereign right of a business. It's not sovereign, but it's very cherished right of a business to be able to choose its price for its product. And this idea that you could interfere with that right is so anti-American, so against everything I learned in school and in business that it was just surreal that somebody thought they had that kind of power over a company. Imagine her trying to tell Tim Cook, "Hey, your iPhone's too expensive. You got to lower the price 200%.
What does an iPhone cost?
It's like $1,000.
And everyone kind of has to have one.
Yeah.
Does anyone complain about that?
Nope.
Why do you think, I do think there's a lot of, fair or not, I think you think it's unfair. I probably have the other position, but there is a lot of resentment toward pharma. Do you think that was part of it?
Oh, absolutely. It's the most hated industry of all the industries. And I remember challenging, they kind of brought me up in CBS to be an expert speaker on a panel about drug prices. This is when the EpiPen, this is Joe Manchin's daughter, raised the price of EpiPen. For the same reasons, and I feel totally legitimate reasons. And everyone was aghast, that people can't afford EpiPens now. They're really important medicine, and everyone's screwed. And I asked the CBS people, I said, "Hey, do you know what the net margin of CBS is?" No clue. So do you know what the net margin of Mylan is, the Joe Manchin's daughter's company? CBS makes twice as much profit as Mylan. So you have a company that makes a life-saving medicine, EpiPen, which literally could be the difference between life or death. And then you have a company that makes reality TV shows and sensationalized news.
Lies. Yeah.
And one of them, which one deserves profit? I think capitalism is a function that sort of assigns profit to the deserved. And in this case, this pharma company, Mylan, makes 1 out of every 10 medicines in the world. And they kind of deserve the right to stay in business and keep doing that. Whereas, you know how I feel about CBS.
Yeah, and for good reason. So you're running this company, you get attacked in public, you become a prop in the Hillary Clinton campaign. The media, as always, on cue, aligns their coverage with her propaganda priorities. They're sort of a seamless unit, the Hillary campaign, CBS News, NBC, Shep Smith. But your job at that point is to sort of bow your head and say, busted, you caught me, I'm sorry, I'm gonna give money to breast cancer research. Why didn't you do that?
It would not have been hard to resign, even stage a firing, and have tell my board, say, hey, you guys can fire me to make this look good so our company can continue and be successful.
Yeah.
And usually that's the solution is off with their head of the CEO. Or the number two option is a PR campaign of laying low. You pay a big DC PR firm $300,000 and they just tell you to don't say a thing. And that's this will blow over, the news cycle will change. And I dug in because I really felt like a few different dynamics are at play. The first is that CEOs are not allowed to have personalities anymore. And I think you see the handful that do, the Elons and others, they get criticized routinely for their personalities. And what corporate America and boards want to see is a CEO that's, just completely, impervious to attack.
And just eat a massive pile of dung and keep going.
Yeah. I think that, so when you have a personality that's defiant or something that you want to be, a hill that you're willing to die on. For me, that hill is capitalism, and it's our American way of life. And it's this hill that no politician can tell us business people what our prices should be.
I know, but Hillary Clinton, you gave her the finger. Like, you didn't expect to get arrested when you did that?
I think that I was a little naive that, that what we learn in school, that when we pledge allegiance and that we will learn about the First Amendment and all this stuff, that it's not connected, that the courts are not connected to the media and they're not connected to politicians and there's not this web that really does exist. And part of me feels like, is the web consequential or is it set up ahead of time? And sometimes it's both. I think the prosecutor that went after me, for example, he may or may not have gotten, an order from somebody, but he may have just felt like, well, this is a guy that I can make a career on.
He's super unpopular. Let's send him to jail.
Yeah, I'm the good guy. He's the bad guy. What the good guys do, we corral them and throw them in jail. It's a story as old as time. And they're doing it to Trump as we speak.
So just not to belabor the point, but for those who don't remember, this is part of the answer to the question, why were you so attacked and so hated? Because you didn't bow at all. So you were dragged before Congress to kowtow, but you didn't. Instead, you did this.
Well, he has been called the most hated man in America, and his latest actions will likely do nothing to change that reputation. Forced to appear before a congressional committee on drug pricing, former pharmaceutical CEO Martin Shkreli refused to answer any questions, repeatedly invoking his Fifth Amendment rights. Here's part of a report from NBC's Ann Thompson.
Appearing to smirk.
Are you listening?
And often inattentive.
Yes.
Former Turing Pharmaceutical CEO Martin Shkreli lived up to his bad boy reputation appearing before Congress.
I intend to use the advice of my counsel, not yours.
Posing for pictures instead of listening.
It's not funny, Mr. Shkreli. People are dying, and they're getting sicker and sicker.
Shkreli declined to answer why the company he once led raised the price of a life-saving drug 5,000%.
So just so you know, when a corrupt moron like Elijah Cummings speaks to you, Surf, he's speaking not as your peer, but as the feudal lord, and you have to pay attention, or at least pretend to pay attention.
Of course. When you try to challenge authority and, that authority expects your subservience, it's a really huge insult because, if Congress doesn't have power, then who does? And it's really dangerous to sort of cross that line. And I was willing to cross it for a few reasons. The first was, I was a huge fan of the Chappelle Show, and Chappelle had a skit of what if black people were treated like white people, and he was a drug dealer, and in the skit, and he goes down to Congress, and Congress is asking him questions, and he's reading this very defiant, it's hilarious skit, and I said, this is my one chance in life to be able to reenact this skit, and my lawyers felt the same way. They remembered the Godfather scene, I think it's Godfather 2, where lawyers come down and to Congress, and they tried to defend Michael Corleone. And so my lawyers we were all interested in this as an entertainment thing more than anything else. We already told Congress we're not going to answer any questions. And in fact, in Congress's own handbook, it is defined as unethical to make a witness come to Congress to only invoke the Fifth. In fact, you're not supposed to bring somebody to do that. But they bent the rules in this case because it's a great, media stunt.